I get discouraged. So this definitely did motivate me a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Just the fact that you guys already are doing this, it's one step ahead. I never went to any webinars, or MAC didn't really even have a pre-dental association, I want to say. So this is great. You guys are all on the right track and everyone's going to get in.
I hope so. I wish everybody gets in. Like, I wish everyone the best of luck. Okay, so we're live. I'm going to start some of the questions. Something that somebody asked is if you graduated and then applied for the exams during the summer. So I'm not sure exactly the context of that question. If whoever asked wanted to like rephrase it, but just like until like they rephrase it, or if they wish to, what I think is could sorry, I can't talk. What I think they could be asking is that if you guys like graduated and then did your DAT, or if you applied after your graduation.
So for the DAT, you can do it anytime you want. I think most people do it in third or fourth year, I think, or like after. Like I don't think anyone does it in first year. Very few people do it in second, in my experience. So most people do it in third or after. And for applications, I think for almost all schools, you have to have at least be in your third year when you're applying. So you can never apply in your second year. So me personally, obviously I'm in my fourth year. I took the DAT when I was in my third year, and I'm applying right now when I'm in fourth year. So I think that's pretty typical. But again, some people do it later, and the earliest you can apply is third year. So I think, Michael, that's what you did, right?
Yeah, some universities, I'm not even sure, maybe sometimes even after second year, I heard about that, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's always worth giving it a shot. And it doesn't matter when you write the DAT. I mean, whenever you feel comfortable, that should be fine. If you get a chance to write the DAT when you can, give it a try. If you don't have anything to lose, why not?
I wrote mine in my fifth year. So I did a semester of fifth year for prereq courses for the US, and that's when I did it. Honestly, like sucks a bit having schoolwork and doing your DAT, which is why it's a good idea, especially for the Canadian one, to start in the summer. But yeah, and everyone does it on their own time whenever they're ready. So there's no set rule to it.
Is there anything else anyone wanted to add on to that?
It's not about the DAT. I do want to add something I missed earlier. During my undergrad journey, I was actually not very certain of how it works to apply to dental school. And we had a club running at York. I don't know what happened after COVID, if it's still active. But before COVID, it was very helpful to me to have that club, because I was genuinely lost. I mean, every university is different. Canada versus US is different. Which major should I take? Which university should I go to? It's super confusing the whole time. I notice it's very nice if you can build a community, just like how you guys are doing here, and even participate in it. Some of the people that are participants here, you can even join the clubs around your universities and try to contribute. I know for a fact all the universities appreciate it. Pretty much everyone I know from my school, in one way or another, had something to do with pre-dental clubs or even forums or whatever it is. So it's definitely worth giving that a shot. I'm just gonna throw my email and even have a little Instagram account. I don't know if it matters, but if you want to ask any questions on the side, please feel free. But sorry, didn't mean to interrupt the Q&A. You guys can go
on. So another question that somebody had is if Canadian schools prefer that you have a full course load. And to even like add a little bit onto this question is something that I've heard is a lot of schools don't let you take a certain number of courses below your year level. So what are your guys' like advice about this or information that you know?
So again, it's like very variable depending on the school. So obviously go on the admissions website or reach them at their email to see what exactly the requirements of the school you're looking at are. But like for Ontario, I know like Western where I go, we like can't really do it anyways, but for dental school, but you have to have at least 3 out of 5 credits, which like I don't know how it works at York, but like I don't know, 3 out of 5 credits in the year that you are, and you can't have so you can't have more than 2 below. So if you're in third year, you can't have more than 2.0 second or first year. that's the requirement for Western. I don't think UFT has that, but again, the course load depends on the school. I think most Canadian schools want you to have a full course load, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking at the admissions pages very often, so it kind of all blends in. I don't know exactly what school requires what, but in my understanding, most of them would want a full course load.
So can I actually add something to what Sia said with the 3 out of 5? I started in a program that in integrated sciences, and then I switched to psychology in my second year. So I took my intro to psych course in my second year. So everything sort of rolled back. And when I was looking at the admission requirements of Western, that was a little concerning to me, because now all my courses, like in my second year, I'm taking all first year courses, which I didn't know what to do with. And then I emailed Western, and they said they actually do consider it on a case-by-case basis, even though they do have the guidelines. So don't worry if something seems off for a valid reason. You can definitely explain yourself. They informed me that there's like a section where you sort of explain why that happened. And if it makes sense, then you're good to go. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's only there to prevent people like in fourth year just taking all first year basic math courses and getting like 100 and everything, so exactly. There's like a reason behind it. Like it's not just a random rule. It's there to ensure that you're taking courses at the level of your study. So if you're in first year of a degree, then you're taking the first year courses for it, right? So
anything else you guys wanted to add to that question? I think we're good.
I'm not too certain about the course loads. I just remember being in first year and talking to someone about it. So I was very scared. So I just took 5 courses per semester. That's just what I did.
Sorry, something I should add is, so the course load is for the years that you're using your GPA for. So it's not that you have to have a course load every year. So for example, Western takes your best 2 years. Those 2 years, they have to have a full course load. UFT takes your best, it drops your lowest basically. You have to have a full course load in all the other ones, so that's what it's like, right? It's not that you have to have a full course load all the time. It's just in the years that you're applying with.
Thank you so much, guys. Another question is if you guys should have, I feel like Michael kind of answered this, but I can just reiterate it. If we should have our DAT results before the deadline of the applications, or if you guys think you should do your DAT like well before you start your applications. What are your guys' advice on that?
So for the US one, I know that you don't have to have your results in because the application cycle starts very early on. It's in June or July. So it's okay if you apply and get all your things ready. And then let's say you're writing in August. However, schools don't look at your application fully. Like some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them don't look at you. They put you on a wait list until your DAT results come in. And then some of them do look at you, but then email you and ask you when you're writing your DAT. So for the US, case by case, but you can apply without your DAT. Just know that it's kind of first come, first serve in a way. The sooner you apply, the higher your chances of getting in are. And that's very real and it's very true. It's not like Canadian schools. People try to apply the first day, like first hour. It's very critical. So that's why a lot of people do their DAT before. I personally did my DAT while I was applying and it was fine. I got into US schools, no problem, but it did reduce my chances. Maybe I could have gotten into, let's say 10 schools and I got into like 5, but that's what I've heard from people.
Thank you. Did Sia or Michael want to add anything to that?
I'm just gonna very shortly say something. I don't know. Just to add on to Nikki. Don't be stressed when you're checking about the application date, because I know when it opened up for DAT, I wanted to write at UFT because that's the closest one, but UFT wasn't part of the centers that was, applying. You can go write DAT, yeah. But then a few hours later, they added it. So just, that's something to consider in the future. Don't be too stressed. It will be fixed within the day. Sorry, so go ahead.
Oh no, what I was going to say is if you are planning to finish your undergrad or if you are planning to do dentistry for sure, then I guess it would be valuable to do it in third year once, just to see like how it is, and then in fourth year you can do it again to do better potentially. Because if you say, like, I know like that's why Michael did it and he got in, which is amazing, but let's say like you apply in like September and then you do your DAT in November, then if it's a bad score, then that's it. Like there's nothing you can do because the next Canadian DAT is in February, which is like too late. That's like they're already giving out interviews at that time. So it's, you know, if you're confident enough, then it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you do want a second chance, and if you're not sure how it's going to be, if it's your first standardized test or anything like that, then it would be valuable to give yourself like a backup, basically.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys. Another question is if you guys can talk more about your volunteering and shadowing experiences, more specifically with how they helped you, and also how you managed to do it, especially like during school, if you guys had jobs and stuff, like just time management in general, how you managed to keep a good GPA while doing your extracurriculars. So kind of elaborating on more advice on those.
Yeah, for sure. I personally found that the pre-dental society at my school was a very good volunteer experience because, first of all, it's like extracurricular, so it shows that you're committed to the profession and you want to learn about it, and it like looks good, and it's, you know, if you have a position of leadership in a club, it's really like it's a good asset to have. But at the same time, like you genuinely learn as you participate. Like I was the VP of my pre-dental society last year, and so whenever we had events like this, I would just go in and like I would do like what you guys are doing, and I would be sitting there and I would have all the dental students and the dentists and other people who had taken the DAT come, and it was just like such a valuable experience. And I was technically doing work, but at the same time, it was like so valuable to me as a person as well. So I think that's a really good way to get involved. So I know you guys mentioned that you have the applications for your executive positions, and I would encourage anyone here who is interested to definitely apply because it's a very good experience and you just get so much out of it. In terms of other volunteerings, again, I would say just do what you like. Personally, what I did, I volunteered at the hospital, and I volunteered with a lot of like tutoring in, like I tutored people, so I didn't really, yeah. So that's what I did with like math and science. So yeah, I don't know. No, like Nikki was saying, like not exactly dental related. With shadowing, I shadowed a general dentist and a pediatric dentist. So again, it's good to like do more than one, but I definitely agree that you have to do at least one general dentist for the US. For Canada, nobody cares, but for the US, they definitely do want you to see, they want to see a general dentist. And in terms of like time management, I would like really prioritize your GPA, to be honest, during the year. Like the summer is when you want to really do the most of your volunteering and shadowing and everything. Like if you're going to do 20 hours of shadowing a week and 10 hours of volunteering, it's much better to do that in the 4 months that you have off than the 8 months that you have to do actual GPA work. So I do very little outside of school during the year, just because I do want to manage my GPA and I do want to maintain my GPA. I mean, so that's what I would recommend. A couple hours a week is fine, it's great, but because for shadowing especially, you want to like shadow, you want to be there for hours a day to like really learn what's going on, because 1 hour a week you're not going to learn anything, right? So it's good to be there for extended periods of time, but if during the year it might be a little tricky with school, because obviously you have assignments and assessments and all the rest. So I would really recommend that you utilize your summer, which kind of sucks because other majors go on vacation for 4 months and we have to go to dental offices, but it's just the way it works, right? I do think it's much better than doing it in the year.
Michael, do you want to go ahead and I'll speak after you?
Sure. Sia described it perfectly. How do I say this? Again, I can't really give a formula that would work. If you can go on forums, there are so many forums online, and you check the university you're particularly trying to apply to, there are so many people who already got in, probably even graduated years ago, that would tell you exactly what they did and give you an idea of what you should do, how much you should do, how many hours of shadowing, how many whatever it is, because they know what their university is looking for because they got into it. So whatever they did would probably work for you as well. But if you try to do something for UFT, it might not work for Western. Their criteria is extremely different. So just look, you got to do your research. That's the thing. It involves some, work to go into it, but I can't really speak on volunteering research shadowing as much because it's just very dependent. But if you ever need any help with the UFT and how UFT looks at things, you can always hit me up and I can give you an idea about that.
So to go off of that, early on, I kind of knew that UFT really prioritizes GPA, and I was too scared to bank on my GPA. So I looked at Western and I saw that they really care about CV. So I just went overboard on my resume and my CV. I honestly, looking back right now, it was the 2 years before COVID, and I feel like COVID made me lazy. So I don't know how I did it either. Like, I'm thinking, what's the best way to tell you guys how I was very productive with my days? And honestly, I would just get up really early. I would try to finish I would do my classes, and then in between my classes, I would go to lab, and then after lab, I would do volunteering, and then after volunteering, I have practice. But my point is, it's not sustainable. I was getting so burnt out after 1 year that I was just thinking, you know what? I don't even want to apply to dental school right now. And COVID happened, like I ended up having a break in between, but don't burn yourself out to the point that you kind of forget about all your dreams and aspirations and can't continue anymore, because I felt like I was getting at that point where I was trying to get everything perfect, everything kind of like on my resume. I was like, okay, US wants this, Canada wants this. I'm going to do every single thing you can imagine. And after like 9 months, I was not having it. So basically what Michael said, like kind of like choose a couple of schools that you like, be realistic, like look at your GPA, like see like what's your competitive edge, like what do you have to offer that the schools really want, and also obviously what schools you're really interested in, and kind of aim for those. It makes it so much easier to do that than to focus on the US has like over like 30 schools, to focus on those and the Canadian ones. So that is my biggest tip. Instead of trying to do every single thing, try to cut down on a couple of schools, focus on those. And another thing is building your character. I didn't get any of these Princeton or Kaplan courses, but instead I got a company called BMO to help me with my personal statement and with my applications. I don't necessarily recommend it. I felt like at the end of the day, it was a lot of money and it was unnecessary. However, a tip that they gave me that I paid so much money for was build your persona, like build your character. So at the end of your 4 years, you're going to write your personal statement, and they're going to have 1 page to learn about you. So when you think like that, then even your volunteering and like what your interests, like you kind of like group them. So for example, for me, to make it easier with an example, I really was involved with different communities with like of disability. For example, I mentioned MS, spina bifida, individuals who were in car accidents, who were in surgery and had alterations to the spinal cord. So these were different volunteer activities, but they were all associated with disability. So I take some brainstorming, like sit down in a coffee shop, like take a pen and just kind of write down like what things you've done and how you can connect them to each other, because that's literally what BMO did for me. Like they were like, just sit down, make a story of your experiences. And that's what I did. Again, I don't know how much for like UFT it matters having that character, but Western really cared about it and US really cared about it. So if you want to apply to those places, that's something that I recommend. Like, let's say you're a really good painter. You can kind of connect your experience with dentistry with any volunteer activities that you did in arts to your aspirations about painting. Let's say you are an immigrant and you are helping tutor kids who don't speak English. So you can kind of volunteer in a couple more places similar to that to kind of put your whole story together. And then you have something to write in your personal statement. You have something to say in your interview, and it just kind of gives you a character. So yeah, that was basically my little advice.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Michael and Sia, is there anything else you guys wanted to add to that?
I was just planning to answer a few of the questions here. Do you want me to do it now, or do you want to read it out first?
Oh, I was just gonna read it. But yeah, I think we're on to the new ones now. Can you guys talk about your experience with interviews and how you guys prepared for your interviews? If you guys had anything like in specific that you guys saw for maybe certain schools, or if you guys found something that really worked for you.
Sure. Michael, do you want to go first? I feel like I just talked so much.
Oh, sure.
Give their ears a break.
I'm sending this
Yeah,
one out.
sure.
So it's all you guys.
Wait, what's up, Sia?
I didn't do any interviews yet, so I'm sending it out. You know,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, the question just doesn't apply to me.
All right. I'll give you guys an idea of what I did, and it's pretty stupid, but I consulted my current dentist who also studied at York, and he also graduated from UFT a few years ago. And because I'm literally following the same footsteps, I asked him what he did and what he would recommend. And what I ended up doing to prepare for the interviews is to get myself into the most awkward situations and try to rescue myself from them. So I would go to the Tim Hortons lineup or Starbucks lineup, and I would just strike a conversation with whoever's around me and just make it as awkward as it could be. And it was awful. It was the worst experience of my life. But eventually, one time after another, I'm actually super serious. This is how I prepared. I didn't even look at the like stock questions or anything. I would just get myself into awkward situations, and eventually, time after like 20 times, sorry to whoever I did it to, it got so normal to me to just be so uncomfortable and still on the place. And I even like I would go around the neighborhood blowing music to the max and just dance to the music, even though I didn't like it. And it's just you gotta be so uncomfortable and then be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's pretty weird. And if you can do that, I feel like when I went to the interview, I was treating the people who were interviewing me like just normal human beings, just like you and I. And if you understand that at the end, it just that's what matters, being comfortable and owning the room. Because when you go to a dentist, you want that dentist to be confident and knowing what he's doing. You don't want the dentist to be like, oh, I think we're gonna, do this and maybe no, it's confidence. That's what they're looking for. The interview is just a filtering process to see how good you are in English, in like communicating and forming sentences and being able to manipulate words, and also see how confident you are sitting in front of them. It's definitely worth a shot looking at certain sets of interview questions that are always being asked. I know 2 of the questions that I was asked were online, so you can always prepare for those. And just know yourself. I mean, as long as you know what you're into and what you're expecting when it comes to the interview, you should be set. I can't really add any more to that. It was very relaxed for me. It felt very normal.
I really loved your approach. I feel like I should have done something like that. So creative. Maybe for your residency interview, you should mention this. Be like, by the way, this is how I prep for my interviews. I go to Tim Hortons lines and I make up random conversations. So that's great. I didn't do that, but now I wish I did. I would say I practice for my Canadian interview with my US interviews, if it makes sense. They roll in quicker, and you kind of get in easier and faster. So I practiced with those. And by the time my Western one came along, I already had an acceptance to the US. So I was very confident, and confidence is key. Like that's all they want. What Michael said is so true. All they want to see is your character. Don't listen to people who tell you need to be like insanely well spoken or very, very like I mean, you do have to be well spoken, but you don't have to be very formal and like a robot and kind of cite out everything you did. They already read your resume. They already know what your GPA is. Don't name drop. Don't like every 2 minutes try to be like, in this experience, I did that and then I did this. They know those things. They want to get to know you. They want to know your character. So be very friendly, be very confident, smile at them, make them feel like they want to have you as a colleague is basically a very good advice that I heard once. You don't want just anyone being your colleague, right? Like you don't want someone awkward, someone who can't speak, someone who can't socialize. So that's what they're looking for, honestly. What I did, the US interviews were a bit different, I would say. They did ask a lot of specific questions, but for Canadian interviews, you guys are set. For US, how do I put it into words? So every single school had a different style of an interview. I'm not sure how UFT's is, but Western had a panel interview, but every school in the US had different ones. One of them was one-on-one, a couple of them were 2-on-2, 3-on-3. Some of them were open, some of them were closed, which means some of them didn't see your resume, some of them did. So again, going on those forums, finding every single school, what they look for, it's very helpful. A lot of their questions are online. They always ask the basic ones. Why did you choose dentistry? What makes you different than other applicants? And why did you choose our school? These 3 got asked over 10 times from me. So those are always that. Introverts punching the air. You guys, like, it seems, I guess what Michael did is a solution to whoever is an introvert and doesn't like awkward situations, because I'm telling you, the number of awkward kind of like questions they asked me and the number of times that I didn't know the answer to their questions, I can't even count. Like one of the doctors was literally asking me to describe a procedure that I haven't seen. And I was like, well, and I just kind of like tried to change the conversation. Don't get nervous. If you say something wrong, don't get nervous. Be a person, really. That's my biggest advice. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, for my Western one, I did practice with a couple of people. I made my friends do a panel interview for me because I've never done a panel before. And I also made my sister sit down, my mom sit down. I made everybody sit down once just to hear me speak. Do I say too much? Do I do anything weird with my hands? Because I know I like kind of like move a bit. So those are the things that they would actually look for, especially if your interviews are going to be in person. They're going to look at how you're dressed. They're going to look at how you carry yourself into the room. So those are important. I think that's it for interviews. If I think of anything else that I did, the entire process is quite stressful, but not once you do like one interview, if that makes sense. Like once you do one, you get confident, which is why it's good to practice. Even if it's a job interview, if it's an interview for any position, kind of like I had friends who've never done an interview in their entire life, not for a position, not for a job. So that's obviously very stressful because you've never sat in front of someone kind of older than you asking you questions about why you are worthy of the position. So maybe try to get a job or some random interview in the middle to kind of prep you for it. But yeah, that's my advice. Let me know if you guys have many more questions about interviews.
I want to add very quick point to Nikki. Excellent points to add on. Please don't walk into like what I did was multiple mini interviews. I think that's what it's called, MMI. That's what EFT does. You just do 3 stations. It's like 15 minutes in total, 10 minutes. When you walk into the room, you want to be somewhat formal, but don't be fully formal. When you walk in, hey, how are you? How's your day going? Must be tired after all the interviews. Maybe not say that, but stuff like that. I like this. The weather is nice. Just bring up little nice convos that you would normally have in a regular conversation. Don't just go straight into business. And even as you're answering, feel free to just bring personal stuff into it. I mean, be like, ever since I was, young, I used to actually enjoy going and hiking, and just random stuff, throw it in. It really shouldn't be a problem. These people are trying to test you for who you are, not, like Nikki said, they already know everything. You don't need to sell yourself to them. You just need to show them who you really are, and that's pretty much it.
I wanted to mention something I forgot, a horror story about my Western interview, actually. I was the first person, 9 a.m., first day of interviews, and their internet stopped working in the middle of my interview, and I cracked a joke. I was basically like, so my internet went out, whatever, that was fine. That was one problem. The second problem was they all paused. So apparently on their side, their internet went out and they all paused. And I generally thought their internet stopped. So after like 30 seconds of them not saying anything, I was like, I thought you guys were frozen. And I cracked a joke and we were laughing about it. And I could just sense that they also got more comfortable and I got more comfortable. And then we were cracking jokes. In the middle of an interview that was probably the most important interview of my life, we were cracking jokes and it worked out very fine. Whereas I had friends who said, I felt like my interviewer was like mean, or I felt like they were very straightforward. I was like, did you try to like say anything personal about yourself? Did you try to like I don't know, ask about their day. And they're like, no, I didn't. So it obviously makes a difference. They soften up to you. They feel like they're speaking to a person. For schools that are out of Toronto, you can always ask about city. That's a good one. I kind of discovered kind of like, oh, how's it going there? How's the weather there? It's really cold in Canada. That was my go-to always. Have you visited Toronto before? Stuff like that. Just honestly, anything. And another question that they ask is, give me like 3 facts about you, something like that. Like Michael said, don't go straight to business with that question. That's a opening question. Be memorable, be friendly, be like kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but don't go with things like, oh, my name is Nikki. I just graduated from Mac. My GPA is this, and I've done this and this volunteering. Instead, say, my name is Nikki. I have a dog. I have an older sister, and I currently I'm attending McMaster. For example, like add something academic, add something personal, mix it up. It's just, I feel like I'm talking so much. I'm sorry. I get excited when I talk about interviews because I just spend so much time doing them. So yeah.
And I know we're not focused on interviews for today, but just one last sentence. They're usually in MMI, they're always going to have one person who's purposely mean. That always comes out. Sorry, did I miss everything? Okay. I just want to say one thing. During MMI interviews, they always have one person who's always mean and, you know, always angry and not very comfortable. That's usually on purpose to see how you would react to it. I know someone who did that in my interview. The person who was interviewing me, I actually had her as a teacher later on, and she's one of the sweetest teachers ever. So just don't forget, it's somewhat business for them as well. They got to fit into a certain persona to see how you'd react to it. Just keep that in mind. I'm done. No more interviews for me.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. We're here to listen to you. It's just like, it's good that you guys are talking a lot. We're learning.
Interview talk, or are you getting too excited about interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait for the interview. Like that, this is what I've been preparing for my entire life. I think that I'm the most prepared for interviews. Everything else I need to get prepared for.
Yeah, I agree with Sorma. Literally, me too. And with exactly what Michael said, like putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you can learn a lot just from practicing talking to people. I worked retail for almost a year and they made me like go up to people and start up awkward conversations like every single day for every single customer. And I hated it so much in the beginning, but at some point it just became so easy. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do on my dental interview, but something like that, like it just builds a lot of confidence for you. And now it's just easier for me in general to speak to new people and everything. So just build your confidence. I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Can I jump in too? I just wanted to say, as like a pre-dental, I think it's really important to just like try to talk to professors as much as you can, because that's like kind of an interview for you. So like personally, I've been representing like students on the Science Student Caucus, which is like you kind of participate with a bunch of professors and like for example, me, I'm speaking so bad. Okay, I'm doing like I'm on a committee that discusses like academic dishonesty cases, and then so like they want my perspective on it, and I have to be like, and it's over Zoom, so I have to like be outspoken and say my opinion, and it's so hard in the beginning because you're like, oh my god, it's like the dean of students, the head of biology, things like that, and you're like, oh my god, I shouldn't speak. Like if they're saying it, they probably know what they're doing. But at this point in time, everyone's like, okay, so what do you think? So like they're always listening to me. So I got my foot in the door and I got their trust, you know, kind of made jokes here and there. And it's always kind of like they always say like, oh, it's so much fun when you're here. Like I crack up like weird jokes everywhere. So yeah, it's always good to go to like intense situations to like get used to all this. I think Mohammed has his hand up. I guess I'll let him unmute.
Hey everyone, just a quick question. Let's say, is there any like red flags that they look for or things that you should not say?
Oh my God, yes. So many. In my opinion, so many. Do not shit on other schools and other programs under no circumstances. Like, not on your profs, not on, honestly, not on anyone. If they ask you, why did you do bad on a course? Do not say, oh, the prof was this, my TA was this, the course is that. Take responsibility for your actions, for your failures, for anything that is. And if they are asking you, I had an interviewer ask me why our school and not a school in Canada. And I like kind of very respectfully told them, both schools have great opportunities. I'd be lucky to get into like any. However, your school's kind of ideologies, your school's curriculum is more in line with mine. That's kind of like keeping it simple, professional, respectful to both sides. That's a big red flag. Michael, do you want to go into like think about another one? I know there's so many. I literally had a list of things not to say, and I would read it over the night before just in case.
Yeah, I don't want to dive too deep into it because I know for a fact pretty much every forum that I saw had a list, like people would literally list long, like 20 bullet points lists of what not to do, and some of them even say what to do. It'd be pretty nice to check that out. I don't want to take too much time right now because I think this is not very focused on interview, but yeah, if you want to ask me out privately later on, I can definitely help out.
But also something to mention, guys, he has to leave in a bit. So is there any like questions that he could specifically answer before he has to go?
Yeah, sorry, I just have to head out. So I know like I'm with you guys. So I'm also pre-dental myself. So maybe I don't know if I'm doing applications now. So if anyone else is doing it or if anyone is looking to do it, I can answer any questions about that. But in terms of like obviously being in dental school and getting in, I haven't done either of those things. So I can't really speak that much for that. But if there's any application questions or anything, I would love to answer it. I just need to head out soon. So no pressure, but if anything, I'll just quietly exit in the next like 5 minutes. And it was great being here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for having me to your great club. And I wish you all the best.
Yeah, there is one question that I think could be really beneficial if you answer since you are like about to start your application. So these two questions kind of like intertwine. So I'll kind of like do a summary, but how would you stand out within your personal statements, especially with doing so many extracurricular activities? Like, how would you like to make yourself seem like the ideal applicant for schools to accept you?
Yeah, for sure. So I just finished doing my personal statement last month. So this is very fresh in my mind. I got a lot of advice from people who have gotten in, people who were like on the committees where they review. And basically the number one advice that I got from those people was to just be authentic and try to stand out, but not in a weird way. So you want it to be dental related. You don't want it to be, you want it to be to the point, because the question is, why do you want to be a dentist, right? So you want to get to the point of why you want to be a dentist. So don't like tell them a story about, you know, how like you grew up and how, you know, I don't know, you did this and you did that. Like you don't want to get too personal with it, but you also don't want to like just list all the things that you've done, because you've already listed all your experiences. They already know where you volunteered. So if, you know, in grade 10, if you volunteered with like the Santa Claus parade, that doesn't belong there, right? So you don't have to list every single thing that you did. Just pick, like what Nikki was saying before, you want to pick a theme for your pre-dental journey. So Nikki said she did disability. What I did was I kind of did like using my hand, and I did like community service in like university, like giving like university community building, you know. So I talked about, so I made a theme and I talked about how I've developed myself in those ways and how those are qualities that I can bring into dentistry and why they've made me want to be a dentist, right? So I went on and on and on about like why, like things that I did that involved using hand-eye coordination and like manual dexterity and stuff like that. So the way you want to stand out is you want to be authentic. So you don't want to just like list out a bunch of experiences. You want to make it into an overall picture. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys like, I don't know if it's a well-known thing, but like a tableau is kind of like a motionless picture. Like it's like a snapshot of everything. So it's kind of a snapshot of your undergraduate and high school journey that led you into dentistry. So yeah, so you really just want to like be telling them why you're a good dentist. You don't want to go overboard with your achievements. So you don't want to be too cocky about it. You don't want to be too overly confident, but at the same time, you want to present yourself in a favorable light that lets them know you want to be a dentist. And obviously, then Michael and Nikki can add on to that, but that's just what I've been getting from people that I've been talking to. And I've just like, it's been on my mind. So I thought I'd get it out.
Because just to interrupt, I was gonna say, you know what you could do? You could get your personal statement and go to a random person. This is killing like two birds with one stone. Go to a random person and be like, okay, read this, and then have them explain to you what like who they think you are. So then you can see if your personal statement is good, and then you can also put yourself in a really awkward situation. So like two birds with one stone.
That's a good idea. I like it.
Sia, before you go, I had a question that I wanted to ask. What was your best coping mechanism for the struggles of being a pre-dental student when you were super unmotivated and just didn't like want to continue on? What was the best way that you went about it?
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about it before I forgot. Good thing you brought it up. So I don't know if it's just me, but I just have these like phases of complete lack of motivation with everything. Like I just completely don't care about anything for like a month, and then I get like hyper motivated. So what I wanted was to get myself motivated to do those things, like to study for the DAT, to start my application, to get involved with Pre-Dental Society. So what I would do is like I would surround myself with people who are motivated. So not necessarily with dentistry, but just people who are very active in their lifestyle and are like pursuing a dream very like closely, and that would always motivate me. So I had a friend who was actually got in, who was studying, who was applying for med school, and he got in this year in third year. So I would always like see him, and he was like so hyper focused on doing this and doing that and doing research and volunteering and doing the MCAT, and just like seeing him do all that really got to me. And I think that's a pretty common human experience, to be able to relate to people based on like the experiences of the other people. So just surround yourself with motivated people who are achieving a goal like you are, like not necessarily dentistry, but maybe getting into professional school or getting into grad school. That's something that's going to motivate you, or at least it did for me. And yeah, in terms of like studying habits, I started doing a like an agenda, which is like so unlike me because I'm such a messy person, like in general. But like I really love the idea of like checking off what you've done. So I would like do a to-do list and I would like check it off. And it just like really gave me a false sense of achievement whenever like I checked off like make your bed. So I really enjoy that. I don't know if that's like a relatable thing, but like even small tasks, it really gives me the sense of like going somewhere with it. So those are my two tips: surround yourself with motivated people, have a to-do list or like an agenda to like keep you on track. And I think with that, I have to head out. If there's nothing else, I really appreciate you guys having me. If there's anything else, throw it in the chat or like unmute yourself. If not, thank you for having me. Thank you to the great speakers. Thank you to the club. And I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. It was so nice to have you.
Thanks. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Those are really good answers. I really enjoyed hearing from him. Okay,
I
guys.
guess they can go on with that too. I kind of want to hear more about that.
Me too.
With how to like stay motivated.
Yeah, let's do stay motivated, and then we can like jump back into personal statement and extracurriculars and stuff.
Sure. I literally did exactly what Sia mentioned. I keep an agenda and I put even the simplest things on it, like call my mom. And I check it off and I feel better about my day. And I just kind of start with those things. I would say find what works for you. There is no like written rule to it. I've Googled like how to be productive like 30 times and like in one day. And I look through the things that people have done and what works. And a big one was staying organized, having an agenda. And of course, your circle is very important. The people you surround yourself with, if they're motivated, they motivate you. And also to just know that it's okay if you have those lazy days and to take rest days. That's a very, very real issue that I feel like we're facing in pre-med and pre-dental kind of settings, groups, and individuals. It's that the competition is so intense that you feel like you can't even take a day off. But don't think like that. You can honestly take a week off, go on vacation. Like, you don't necessarily just have to be grinding all the time, because then you'll burn out and then you won't be as productive as you want to be. So sometimes it might just be taking a day watching Netflix in your bed for you to get motivated again the next day. I know sometimes if I watch like too much Netflix, I feel really bad the next day and I get really productive. So that's just like a personal thing I do. But yeah.
I agree, Nikki. Even with Saya too. Listen, this is it's a pretty long journey. It's gonna be years before you can apply to dental school. You have 3, 4 years, sometimes 5, whatever it takes. Remember, because it's so many years, you don't want to be a slave to this lifestyle a lot of people imagine it's gonna be. Make sure you exercise, go for runs, eat healthy, go out with your friends on the weekends, watch the Netflix show before you go to sleep. Don't If you can't integrate both a life that you enjoy with the tasks that you have to get done until you can, apply to dental school, then you're doing something wrong. It shouldn't feel like it's like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to do this anymore. It was like that in first year for me because I wasn't doing stuff I enjoyed. And then over time you build the discipline, you learn yourself more, so you know exactly what works for you. And you just eventually know what to do and how to manage your time. Just make sure this is a journey, not just 4 years you get a slash and waste out of your life. It should be something you enjoy as well. Just make sure you do that.
I have lost track of the questions. I mean, I guess Shamim knew, but guys, at this point, if I feel like some people even left, but yeah, please just reiterate your questions so we can answer them.
There are some questions still, so that we can go back to. So one of them would be really good for Michael because he applied to U of T, but it's also make it like a general question of how you stand out with your personal statements. But we can start with Michael so you can continue on talking. But would the personal statement and essay for U of T significantly impact your chances of getting in? You said it's really GPA focused, but you can like elaborate on what you saw as the best process of trying to get into U of T.
Yeah, sure. Definitely doesn't significantly impact. People are going to tell you that it really doesn't. Pretty much everyone I know from my class, their personal statement was pretty boring, nothing crazy. And actually, when I applied, it was the first year they introduced personal statements. So it was like a test run. They didn't even care about it. As long as your GPA is high, I know the average GPA of acceptance was 3.93. So it definitely needs to be on the higher end. As long as your GPA is high, your DAT is, all right, and your interview skills you're very confident, it's pretty much a guaranteed entry. Personal statements don't matter at UFT. I'm gonna tell you right now. And I don't know if it's going to change over the years, but definitely nowhere near as significant as other universities. That's for sure. I can tell you that. But you should definitely have something that's somewhat unique about you, something you can bring up in interviews, something you can even write about in the personal statement, so that you're not like all the other participants. It does increase your chance of getting in.
In terms of personal statements and standing out, is there any other advice that you wanted to add with that? Anything that you saw worked for maybe even other schools or just in general?
Me or Michael?
Either or. I was thinking like Michael can like continue on talking and then we can hear from Nikki.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna let Nikki speak about this because I only applied for UFT, and again, when I applied, it wasn't they weren't focused on personal statements. So I didn't even double check with the professional website. I just wrote it by myself, got my friends to check it, maybe edit it a little, tell me what's better, where I can improve and whatnot. But I feel like Nikki would definitely help out. She did a fair amount of research, so I'll just send it over to Nikki.
So I don't really know how important your personal statement is. Like I personally thought it's really important for US and Western, and I almost killed myself over. Like I literally spent so many months on it, editing it and editing it. And now looking back, I'm like, was that necessary? I'm not sure. I can never tell you because I don't know, because you don't know what the application cycle is. However, speaking from my own personal experience, I just heard so much about the whole making something memorable, making something unique about yourself. So I kind of went with that. Another recommendation is kind of start with a story or start with something, again, memorable. That's what a lot of people do. I've read quite a lot of personal statements, and most of them kind of start with that either wow factor or a traumatic experience that they had that's related to why they're pursuing dentistry, or just something interesting. Like put yourself in the other people's shoes. Like they're probably reading thousands and thousands of these personal statements. Like if you were in their shoes, do you want every single one to be just like basic, like I like dentistry because of the lifestyle and because I use my hands often. I did this shadowing and this volunteering. Like already when you talk to us three, like all three of us said the similar reasons for why dentistry. So try to make your personal statement more interesting than that is kind of, and it's hard. It's very hard. I'm going to be honest, like to kind of start it. But once you start it and you have a theme going and an idea going, then like Michael said, you give it to a couple people to edit it and you kind of go with that. You just have to have that initial sit down and figure out what you want to talk about and what your angle is about starting. I would say for US schools, all of them want personal statements. So that's nice. You write up one, you submit it, and all 30, 40 schools read that one. So it can't be specific to a dental school. That's another thing. It has to be a general thing of why you want to do a dentistry. And what else? Yeah. Don't list your experiences one by one. It's not a resume. It's a personal statement. Make it personal. Yeah, read other people's personal statements maybe to like get an idea of kind of how they're doing it. But again, no right or wrong answer. I know we keep saying this, that everything is so dependent on the person, but it's really true. Like there is no black and white or wrong and right answer unless you're saying something obviously wrong on your personal statement. Like I applied to medical school, didn't get into medical school, now I'm applying to dental school. Don't say stuff like that. Instead, learn to twist things. So I saw that there was a question about having non-dental related experiences. So instead of saying I was pre-med before, now I'm pre-dental, you can kind of say, I wanted more exposure to both fields, or for example, I did skin cancer at McMaster. I was the founder of the Skin Cancer Association, and they asked that. They were like, what does that have to do with dentistry? And I said, I was born in Dubai. I grew up just under the sun a lot, and I was just very curious about the effect of tanning. Like all I do all the time is to tan. So I started doing research about it, and I realized that it's so bad for you. So I wanted to also raise awareness for other kids. And they like that, and it has nothing to do with dentistry, but you kind of add your own twist to it, make stories of the reasons of why you did things on your resume, so they don't think that like we're all robots trying to get in, just putting random experiences down. But yeah, that's another.
I have a question myself. So obviously, like a big reason that all of us want to pursue dentistry is like the big payoff at the end where we will make a lot of money, obviously. So I was just wondering, like, would it be bad to mention in your personal statement or even in the interview, like that you are in it for the money, but what your vision is for this, like what you want to do with this, like for example, when I was writing a personal statement, I kind of said that like I want to start up like a good dental business in a better city to make like money to then make branches in smaller towns that don't have easy access to dental offices. Like, is this something interesting for them to hear? Because I know that is what they're thinking. Like, okay, everyone wants the money. Then like, is it valuable for them to see that someone has like a vision for what they want to do with their career? Or is that something like not very related to getting into dental school? Like, should we just focus it on like what we want to study about?
I'm just gonna continue to talk. So I think it's very important for you to kind of have a long-term goal and to mention it like that. It's a good idea. Obviously, never say, I want to make a lot of money. That's why I want to go to dental school. The whole reason for your application and for your interview and for your personal statement is to prove to them that you don't want to go to dental school for the money, but you want to go to help people. So, however, your vision of kind of having maybe a corporation style dentistry where you start with a bigger one and then help other cities is a very nice, cool idea, which I'm sure they would appreciate a lot. But also think about stuff like the dentist that's reading it. Are they someone who likes private practice and hate how dentistry is slowly becoming industrialized? Like little things like that. I don't know if I'm overthinking it or not, but a lot of people, when they read my personal statement, mentioned to me like politics, like stuff like that. Don't take like one side, be very neutral and these terms. And that was one of the things that I heard about how a lot of dentists really want to kind of have their own private practice and they don't want to kind of expand bigger. But I don't really know how relatable that is to your story, but that's something that I was hearing when I was applying. Because you know how for, let's say like medical clinics right now, they're becoming kind of industrialized. Like one company has a medical clinic and they hire doctors, whereas you could be one doctor and have your own patient. So that's like a whole debate going on, and like dental school and dentists that are older than us that I've heard amongst older people talking. But so yeah, be mindful of random things like that, but there's nothing wrong with sharing your vision and saying that you want to help smaller cities. And it's actually pretty great. It's a pretty cool idea. I haven't heard of before. I really liked it, but stay away from money talk, basically, in a way. Focus on helping people.
I actually, Summer, I also want to add on. One of the teachers that was doing interviews during my cycle, I got to know her over the year I just spent at UFT, and she's so big on having remote clinics, not like actual built clinics, but ones you can move around in the weird parts of British Columbia or Alberta. And she's super passionate about it. And I know for a fact someone actually mentioned that in the interview cycle that I had, and I'm assuming that was a big point of why they got in. So it's super, like Nikki said, it's super important to have a vision in the future. And to also add on to something, Paramida, I don't know if I butchered the name, sorry, has a question here saying, what would be an example of a unique thing about someone, like a specific skill? And the best example I can come up with, imagine someone who did public health as their master's. Let's say they finished their undergrad, went for master's public health, and then during their public health, they went to Africa and administered some certain vaccines, that helped in certain dental procedures. They have something there called ART, atraumatic restorative treatment, which means like cheaper, not very reliant on clinic heavy procedures. So if you say like, you mastered in it and then you went on trips to Africa to genuinely contribute to the better health and bring up awareness, that's insanely unique. That's something that you don't come across often, for example. And there's no one answer. I mean, you can be as unique as you want it to be. It's up to your personality.
In my opinion, being unique has very different kind of aspects to it. It could be sports, it could be a skill that you have, it could be a passion that you have. It could also be a master's program that you did. It could be an experience that you had growing up, something significant in your life happened in your family. I don't know, like it really could be anything. It doesn't even have to have a positive spin on it in the beginning. You can turn it into a positive thing. So yeah, just anything that will make someone stand out. Like I'm trying to think, like, for example, you might think playing soccer is not unique, but if you make a story about soccer, how many people do you think out of 50 people are talking about soccer? Maybe 2, maybe 3, not all 50. Whereas research isn't a unique thing. Shadowing isn't a unique thing. These things aren't unique, but There are a lot of things, like honestly, there's a lot of self-reflection when you're applying and when you're doing applications and interviews, about yourself, what you like. Like originally I was like you guys, I was like, I don't know, I don't have anything to talk about, I don't have any specific set of skills, nothing unusual happened to me growing up for me to expand on and say, oh my god, I had this cool upbringing. Like I felt pretty basic. But then I started thinking about sports, I started thinking about arts, I started thinking about how I can speak a second language and how I love traveling. So just you pull out of anywhere you can until something sticks.
Also, to add on to that, pull from anything that sticks. Okay, so as an undergrad, so if you're thinking about this like ahead of time, so you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna be applying in 2 years and I need to have a personal statement ready. What are the skills I already have? And then just think like, okay, so I've been volunteering a lot in like food shelters. So like it really helps to show like your continuous involvement and like growing and like building on your involvement. So maybe start like doing something related to that, like build on it. So then when you get to your personal statement, you can write about it better. You have more things like kind of like a fatter section to like more things to like pull on to write about. Because you're not gonna write about like everything you've done. It's just like the most significant and like most valuable things, the most defining like of your character activities that you've done. So like just like build on that. Like for example, I when I was in like middle school, I started joining like school clubs and I was really involved in like community outreach, going and like helping like with fundraising to send to like India and things like that. And then I realized that like, okay, I'm interested in this. And then in grade 10, then I went to like India with Me to We and like I participated in that. And then even now I continue to be part of UNICEF and things. So when I write that in my application, it's like, oh, this person is like actually invested in this. Like they've been part of this. So it's not just something like kind of flaky and fake that you're writing, because it shows like when you don't care about something. So do something you care about. And also with like Western, applying to Western, Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they really look for like indigenous community involvement and things like that. I think it really matters to them. So if you want to start working on that, like maybe taking some courses about indigenous health, indigenous history, participating in cultural events like that, so that you're like involved in their beliefs and their vision. I always say this to everyone in like every webinar we have, but like this is something I like, read about the university and follow what they need. If you're looking for U of T, try to do research even though you don't need it. That schools like usually their curriculums based more on that. So yeah, like just kind of build your story while you're doing something you like. So like think what you like and then build on it so that you have a nice story about yourself to tell.
Yeah, that was very well said. Good.
I had a question. Oh, Michael, you wanted to say something? No, go ahead. Are you sure?
No, I just said agreed. Like I agree with Sormy.
Okay. I wanted to kind of like ask two things. So one, with what Sorm is saying about being invested with like your extracurriculars, of course, like there's gonna be like kind of like students that they see like, yeah, they just kind of joined this to join this because they just wanted to fill up their resumes and stuff. But would you say that it's necessarily important to like have a lot of like years behind like something that you're doing? Like if let's say like, for example, like we started like Bright Future Dentists, you know what I mean? I'm going into my third year now, and I'm most likely just going to be applying to dental school like within the next 2 years or something. So I obviously haven't been like committed to this for a really long time, but it's something that I've always cared about and been passionate about. Do you necessarily believe that your time within doing something that you care about and what makes you unique is a huge factor, or no?
So when you're applying, just because it's really fresh in my head, they ask you how many months or years you've been at a position. So I can only assume that they care about it, that they're asking exactly how many months, how many hours you invested in it, because you could do 1,000 different things and only spent, let's say, like a week on it and fill up your resume, but it's not as valuable as someone who spent a year or two on something. I don't think you need to, like, it's obviously nice if you have something that you've been dedicated to for like 10 years, like Summer, but if you don't, like I didn't, my longest one would be like 3 years. And from speaking to a lot of people, like usually like over 1 year shows more than enough dedication, especially if you do it throughout undergrad, especially if you say, I started the second year, third year, fourth year. That's like perfect. Like you don't have to have 10 years, 5 years. It doesn't have to be that long, but also having it for like 2 weeks is not as impressive because they're trying to see if you, the whole purpose is for them to see if, first of all, you're a good human being, you care about community service, but also can you juggle school, extracurriculars, volunteering, research, like all of that together. So if you're only doing 2 hours per week, 2 weeks, then you're not really juggling much compared to someone who's been doing it a couple times a week and for a couple of years. So I think that's like something that they care about. It's not a written rule or anything. So don't take out your experiences that are like under 1 year, but have 1 or 2 that are long to show that you are a dedicated person and that you can kind of hold the commitment, which is important for them.
Also, be realistic. I mean, I don't think they're expecting you to be doing anything in first year, probably not even in second year. You can shadow and volunteer in second year, but you shouldn't be doing, I don't think they're expecting you to do anything major. Most people don't decide to go to dentistry until, you know, third year or around that time. So I think, Shamim, that's pretty good time to, you know, continue with this club and everything. Not an excuse not to do anything for the first 2 years, but be realistic with the timing, because they will be realistic with it. They'll understand. As fearful as it might seem, and as serious as, you know, these big dental schools feel, once you know, eventually, hopefully, we all get into dentistry, you're gonna notice it's just as you know, undergrad, probably even more silly. I mean, it's the exact same people. Same classmates that are gonna have that are gonna get in. So it's not as serious as it seems. So just don't overthink it that much.
Yes, I mean, I just kind of meant like if you already have some kind of prior investment of time into something, it would be very beneficial to like milk it for all you can, you know, like just come up with it and like continue it now. It will help you. But really, like, yeah, like the things like Michael was saying, like in first year and second year, or even in high school, the experiences that you do, it's mostly to just be an experienced person so that you can land these positions in third and fourth year. So like if I didn't do all of these commitments, like go to this club, that club, and like apply for exec in high school and things like that, I would never know how to like come and like manage a club or even how to set up events. So like that stuff, that's what that is important for. But then really when you finish all of that and you get yourself to the level where you're ready for the bigger commitments, then you really showcase that. But obviously, yeah, it's like I was just, when you do have some prior commitments, or like you volunteered in high school to like make something, and then you can just keep building on that throughout your university career. That's all I mean. I hope that makes sense. I struggle with speaking sometimes.
No, it's 100% made sense. And I just want to say something. What I said is based on my classmates. I mean, most of my friends didn't do anything in the first 2 years. I spoke to them pretty much third years when they actually started investing into their, you know, what would have been on their dental application later on. So it's going to get more competitive over the years. So it's definitely nice to have stuff on your, you know, application. But again, it might be too early. Don't take it too seriously. It's fine if you don't start until later.
One other thing that I wanted to ask, like relating to experience, Michael, I'm not sure if like you can like say too much about this because you applied to U of T and they didn't really emphasize on like your past experience and stuff, but would job experience like also be a thing that can like be a part of your application and your CV? I know like they emphasize a lot of shadowing and volunteering and everything, but would kind of like working throughout your degree and stuff, if you're excelling among like the workplace that you're in and stuff, can that be something that can be a part of like your CV or just like who you are and stuff? Would it be valid, or do they look down on having like a job? I mean, I'm assuming they don't look down on it, but would they kind of like look at that as good and valid experience?
Here's how I'm going to say this. They're only going to look at it in a major way if you let them look into it as a major way. If you can somehow frame it in a way saying that I did this job and blah, 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 and that's why it should be important to you, they will take it pretty seriously. Like you said, I can't really speak on it because it wasn't major when I applied, and still not so major. UFT doesn't care about that stuff for some reason. I don't know if that's good or bad, but they will definitely pay attention to what you want them to pay attention to. That's the beauty of it. That's the nice idea about personal statements and interviews. They will listen to you and they will build onto that. They're not gonna go ask random questions like, so what did you do in second year, and blah blah. No, it's whatever you want to tell them, that's what they're gonna hear in the end. So you make it the way you want it to be. Everything is important. It's the way you frame it and how important it is to your personality.
Nikki, did you have any like ideas in terms of like Western and like the US schools you applied to?
I mean, it's always very impressive to have a job while in school. They're never going to look down on it. But like Michael said, you can make your personal statement and resume whatever you want it to be. It's all about what you highlight, what you don't highlight. So that thing you said about working in retail and that working on like that helped you work on your communication skills, that's huge. Like you can even highlight that on your personal statement and be like, I don't know, like my retail experience allowed me to work on my communication skills. I also did this, I also practiced this skill in, let's say, this club at school. So that also connects your two experiences, a pre-dental experience and a retail experience. And you're also talking about what you learned in it. All they care about is seeing what you have learned from your experiences. Is it leadership? Is it teamwork? It's not so much about what type of experience it is in terms of what context it's in, but mostly about what it teaches you. Everything you mention, you have to kind of be like, what did I learn from this? What can I highlight from this experience? And that's your golden ticket. Like just mentioning, I'm trying to think if I had anything like that. Even for shadowing for US schools, and I think for Western, they ask you to write a little bit about it. Obviously you see dental procedures, but what else did you work on while you were shadowing? Like I remember for one of mine, I mentioned communication skills. I mentioned that I started to talk to patients. I called patients, whatever. That's one. Or I helped translate in Farsi for patients. So those are all things that you might not think that you did while you were shadowing or while you were volunteering or while you were working, but it's all about reflecting and trying to pull things from all your experiences. Like working is definitely not a bad thing to put on there.
Because like I just didn't know, like I see a lot of people emphasizing on having volunteer experiences. Don't do things that are like paid for you because they could see that as you just doing it for the money.
No. They really like a paid job. It's actually like I actually know a couple schools, especially like there's like a specific section for it. It's volunteering and paid work. Like they want you to put it on there, or else they wouldn't have that entirely. I think it was McGill. McGill had an entire section to it. Western had an entire section to it. US schools for sure had an entire section to it. A lot of people, their unique thing is, for example, working through school, managing 50,000 things together. So it's definitely a good thing. Put it on there. But so your CV is separate than your personal statement for all these schools. So you can add whatever you want on your CV and it's fine, but it's for your personal statement that you have to pick and choose. Does my retail or my job experience really go with my theme of explaining why I'm in dental school? Then you got to get picky. But for your resume and for your CV, put whatever you want on there. And then you can highlight 6. That's how it goes. You put like 20, and then you highlight the top 6 that you think are the most important. So what I did was I tried to have a good mix of dental related and non-dental related. Something that showed leadership. Like I mentioned, I started a club. I mentioned that I play sports, and I mentioned shadowing, and then I mentioned, I don't remember what my 6th one was, but something like just to show that you have a personality and you do different things. So it's not bad. But yeah, another person said that does talking about random skills make you seem like you're more passionate about that skill. So again, all depends on how you word it. If you're talking about your paintings and you're like, I love painting, and make your entire personal statement about paintings, obviously they're going to find that weird. The whole point is to take that skill, take that interest, and either kind of weave it into your personal statement about why dentistry, or in interviews, like do a little hint. You don't have to like talk for too long about it. Like if I say I have a dog, I'm just saying I have a dog named this, and that's it. Like I'm not really talking about how much I love my dog, but I'm just trying to make you like me. So yeah.
Yeah, you definitely shouldn't speak about it if it doesn't relate to your dental experience. If you can't make it relate to your, why you want to be in dentistry. Um, like Nikki said, you can mention random things like, oh, I like taking pictures with a telescope of certain moons and whatever. You can definitely mention it during an interview, but it probably shouldn't be on your personal statement if you're not going to make it major and somehow link it to dentistry. That's what I would say.
Okay, I was hoping to give 2 more minutes of time for anybody who wanted to ask a last minute question, but kind of unrelated to pre-dental journey, I wanted to ask Michael if you wanted to share one thing he really enjoyed about his first year of dental school, and how he's doing with that. And if Nikki, you want to elaborate on anything you're really excited about in going into your first year.
Nikki, let's do it chronologically, whatever that word is. Do you want to go first? Then I'll go after.
Okay.
Go for it.
I am nervous. I'm excited, but I'm stressed because I have a lot of friends at U of T right now in Michael's class actually, and I saw them last year and they were struggling a bit in the beginning, like with the content, like the course, not the content, sorry, with the workload. There was just so much workload and I haven't studied in over, I don't know, like over 9 months. Like I haven't touched the book. So I'm just nervous about getting back into studying. So today I picked up my first book. I was like, let me remember if I know how to read. But I am very excited to meet my classmates. I'm excited to move. I'm excited to go to the sim clinic, which is like a simulation clinic where you practice stuff, but I've heard I won't be able to get in there first semester or first couple months or something. Yeah, in general, I'm nervous and I'm excited. I'm interested to see how Michael's first year was. I'm hoping not too bad.
That's awesome to hear. Exact same for me. That's how it was. You're gonna love the sim lab. It is so nice when you actually get to see what it's like. Eventually, you start doing restorative work, and it's gonna be amazing. And Shamim, to answer, the highlight is the people. As excited I am about dentistry, the people are who made it better. Is, like I said, is very similar to undergrad. There's going to be some professional and formal people, but a lot of the class is actually super down to earth, super chill. You can go out with them and you can, have your own social life. It's very integrated. It's like school and then outside of school. And the workload is as difficult as it was, Nikki. I felt for some reason third year at York was way more difficult than first year at dentistry. I don't know why.
Okay.
But I feel maybe like as the more years you keep studying for, the more discipline you have and the more you know how to study it. That's, I guess, why I felt that way.
That makes me feel better. So
yeah, but it's definitely not as serious as people make it seem. It's definitely not as difficult. And it's just like undergrad without the stress that, oh, I need to get 4.0s and I need to impress a certain set of people and whatnot. That's what I have to say.
One thing I've been confused about is like dental school, like courses like pass fail, are they semestered? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, some of them are fall semester, some of them are winter, sometimes even summer. We had summers, and even we have summers as well. Some of them are full year, but the way they work is, at least at U of T, you need a 60% to pass, which is it's not that difficult. But if you want to specialize in the future, then you might want to look into getting A pluses or even A's or whatever. But usually first year is pretty chill. No one looks at first year. So.
Thank you guys so much. Nobody really asked any questions after the final call. If you guys are interested in asking any like questions that didn't come to mind, if you wanted to like look at this recording over again and maybe like remember what you wanted to ask that you forgot. So I'm gonna put the emails of each of our speakers, Michael, Nikki, and Sia, in the chat over here. If any of you missed it, or if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to DM us on Instagram at bright_future_dentists. We'll answer any questions that you guys have. Reach out to us. We're always open. Thank you guys so much for attending. I truly appreciate it. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to Michael and Nikki. And I give my thanks to Sia as well, but he's not here right now. I truly appreciate you guys for making this event possible, coming out and taking your time, especially spending so much time answering questions. Your patience and your advice is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for hosting this. It was very amazing.
Over this webinar, she's like, I'm doing this for like individual people here and there all the time, so might as well just do it for a group of people. So now
you'll see, like you have questions right now, and then as soon as you get in, everyone's questions start rolling in. So honestly, it's a cycle. Like it's so beautiful. I love seeing it. I love seeing that I was reaching out to people for help and they helped me, and now I have the opportunity to help. So anytime, I'd love to help. So takes a village, right? For all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. It was really wonderful hearing all your advice.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you to all the participants for commenting in the chat and thanking the speakers. We appreciate you guys. If it wasn't for your questions,